Unplugged with Nicki Marie, episode 5. I've never been really happy to see this person. And she's a guest on my show today. Her name is Renee Hawk. She was my divorce attorney. And today we're here and she brought me flowers.
I did.
And I was so excited to see you today. Didn't it feel different?
It does. And it's nice to hear you say that because most people don't want a Renee Hawk in their life. And I can appreciate that. So once you get to the other side, it is nice to be able to see each other outside of the divorce.
Well, when I got referred to you, you were referred to as the Hawk. Did you know that?
I did not.
The Hawk. You need the Hawk for this case. So let's really just dive right in because we like to keep this short and ADD proof, right? But I want people to know the depth of our relationship because I figure if I got through something that literally almost killed me emotionally, I want to share some things about it with other people. I want to get other people thinking. So when I met you, I had fired my other attorney.
Right.
And I told you in our first conversation, it was too fire on fire. And I want to do this the way that makes me feel authentic to me.
Right.
And I'm sure not everything you agreed with, right? When it came to me in this case, but we did it together.
Yes.
We really did it together. So talk to me about that first, is like the importance of finding the right attorney for yourself. And then we'll really kind of like peel back all the layers of divorce.
Yeah, divorce is hard. So I say to most of my clients, you hopefully are only going to go through this once in your life, hopefully. And you don't get a do-over. So it is extremely important that you find the right person for you to walk you through this. And I do acknowledge that it's a privilege for me to do this with people. It is a very challenging time in your life. People sometimes can even compare it to death because of what it feels like, the loss of your marriage, the life that you had planned for yourself. So it's a very emotional time for most people. And you want to make sure you find somebody that understands what you're looking for and can walk you through it the way you need to walk through it. Every single case is different. Every family is different. Every person is different. So while one case I may be rolling up my sleeves in court and going to battle, another one doesn't really need that. That family is going to need something different. And that's like when you came to me. You were, I think, in the midst of not feeling great about where your process was at because it became confrontational and you wanted to be able to take it down a notch. So you and I had that conversation about what you were looking for and how do we get you to the other side in a way that I think you did it really wonderfully because your main goal was to be able to co-parent well. And when there's high conflict divorce, being able to co-parent well can be extremely challenging.
Yeah. My goal was to keep a relationship.
Right.
You know, good, bad, indifferent. Fighting is not my style. Unfortunately, the family court system is not always ideal. Right? You all of a sudden it feels like your kids are a formula. And that's really hard, I think, for someone like me who went in with full emotion.
Right.
There's people who handle it like a business. And then this is what I want to ask you about is I said to Renee when we were sitting over here, I said, do you remember most of our conversations were me talking to you like you were my divorce therapist.
Right.
So let's go into that. Is that common? Is that part of your role?
It's extremely common. And I said to you, but I'm not qualified as a therapist. However, it's very hard to separate going through a divorce and dealing with those issues and not bringing the emotion into it. So a lot of my conversations with my clients do sometimes feel very therapeutic and we have to talk about things that maybe I'm not qualified to really give advice on, but I can guide you through the process. In a divorce, you should probably always have a therapist too that you're working with just because of how emotionally challenging it is. And the reality is the court system is not there to deal with your emotions.
At all.
At all.
And I learned that the hard way. I was like, how is this fair? What about this? What about that? And you're right. They're just trying to keep a family intact and move you along.
It is very formulaic. And people come into this process feeling wronged. And how do I get emotionally compensated in this process? And you can't.
You don't.
You don't.
You don't. And what about, so Massachusetts, where we are, is a what do they call it?
No fault.
A no fault state. So you can have a man or a woman flinging his ding-a-ling all over the place
And they do.
And it's just,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
I hate
matter.
to say that, but it doesn't. So a no-fault state means you can get divorced just because your marriage is broken down. You don't need to prove a ground. But a lot of people come into this process and they're like, my spouse had an affair. I want to be compensated for this. And there's a lot of anger and emotion that goes with that. But the reality is you're not going to get compensated unless that person has dissipated your marital assets on gifts and trips and dinners and hotels. The court's not going to compensate you. And that's a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
So what is your, like, I just have to go right into, what is your method to getting someone through a high conflict divorce?
So when people come to me, I tell them, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So if you come to me, you're an emotional mess, you have these, well, you actually were much better than you think you were. I'm going to tell you that right now. You really were. I don't think you give yourself enough credit. But you have these expectations that will never be met in the court system. We have to set that straight real quick, because I don't ever want my clients feeling like they are not getting what they deserve. I will always fight for them, but they can set unrealistic expectations. So that needs to be addressed immediately. But when there's high conflict, there's tools in the system to deal with that, especially if there are children involved in a case. We have parent coordinators and people that can step in and help you when you do have high conflict and you cannot co-parent with the other person at that time. So there are tools. You want to try to avoid those if you can, but in certain cases you absolutely cannot.
Yeah, it's thinking of what one person's goal is in the divorce is probably very unlikely that it's the same as the other person.
Correct. And people come into a divorce on completely different levels, right? So if you're in the type of divorce where one person is the one that says, I want the divorce, I'm done with the marriage, you typically, not always, but typically have a partner that is not there. They don't want to give up on the marriage. They still want to be married. And when that person is forced into a divorce, they have not emotionally dealt with what the other person has. So for one person to come in and they've already dealt with the loss of their marriage. They've gone through the emotions. And now you have this other person that's just reeling from it. It's hard to get them on the same page. And that process alone in a divorce can take a lot of time.
Yes. And I just have to ask it. So I don't want to not represent the men, but like I say every week, all I can do is represent myself as a woman, and knowing the feeling that I'm looking at the stats, like 70% of divorces are initiated. I mean, it might be more by women.
Right.
What's your take on that?
I think that is a stat that has changed over time. So I do see, I represent, I want to say equally, probably men and women right now. My clients are probably an equal blend of the two. I do think that a lot that leads to that is that women feel underappreciated in their marriages. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like they're doing a lot on their own. And the financial independence that women have now allows them to leave marriages that otherwise they wouldn't have left. So as we are evolving in society as women, I do see that a lot more women are willing to leave a relationship that is not serving them well. And they're not putting up with bad behavior.
Right. And they
feel empowered.
Yeah. But also this knowledge and mindfulness about, like, I deserve this too.
Correct.
Right. I deserve a life where I'm appreciated. I deserve somebody who sees me for exactly who I am and what I do. This invisible labor thing. I can't help but be frustrated at times about the whole lean in movement.
Right.
Because we leaned in so hard, but where's that balance at home? And I think kids are struggling now because of that. I think it's all about, right? It's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no village anymore. That's like all the stuff that I hear over and over again is, if there is a village, women feel like we're the ones that have to create the village.
Correct. We are the coordinators of the village.
Of everything.
Yeah.
So that's where you're seeing more and more women say, I can't do this anymore. And I think they've been grieving the loss of the love for longer. And when they get to the point of divorce, the husband's saying,
yeah,
now I don't want a divorce. Where did all this come from?
And then sometimes it's too late at that point.
Yeah.
The damage is done. Yeah. But a lot of women feel Like they're picking up a lot more of, I don't want to call it the slack, but they're wearing way too many hats and they can't manage it all. And that's what leads to where they're at. And in that they are kind of, they know they deserve more. And anybody does, whether it's a husband, a wife, a same-sex couple, you get to a point where if you feel like you're doing it alone, then guess what? You are going to do it alone. You're going to say, I'm out.
Yeah. And I think we've been taught as women that there's no like mercy flag till you're really at mercy.
Right.
Right? Because we want to feel like, wait, we're supposed to do this with our kids. We're supposed to handle bedtime and we're supposed to handle reading and we're supposed to handle morning routines. And again, that's like what we've put on ourselves in a lot of ways.
Yes. We try to do it all.
Yeah.
And we can't.
We can't. We can't. And we're saying it now.
Right.
Now, what about men who leave? What is it usually over?
Usually, I mean, again, I just speak from my experience.
Yep.
So I'm certainly not an expert in the area.
We're both, just a disclaimer, we're having a conversation.
Right. I typically see that they've grown apart. They've grown apart from their spouse, or they feel like they're not number one in the relationship anymore. That's very common. Once kids come into the picture, that's a difficult balance, and they're not feeling like they're a priority. And that can lead to other things, right? That can lead to, and I'm not saying that men are the ones that are unfaithful, but that does happen frequently, and women too. But yeah, it's the loss of that partnership before kids.
Yeah. And
the struggle once the kids come in can be very challenging.
My ex, when we've talked about this, because before I started the podcast, I was like, how much can I mention? Like it just in conversation. And I said, what would you say to a man who was considering going down the wrong path or potentially thinking about how unhappy he is in his marriage? He goes, if I knew what I know now, I would say none of what you're thinking is worth it. You know, like how often do you hear that?
I hear it, but I will tell you, not that often, probably because I'm in the middle of a divorce.
You're in the middle of it, right? You're not at the counseling part of the beginning where it can be saved.
Right. Or even when you can reflect on what you've done. Yeah. Because that's a hard pill to swallow when you realize you've made mistakes that you shouldn't have made.
Right.
And now you can't undo it.
Right. Right. So as far as like, I think I know my goal with this podcast is not only to get people to think about their family dynamic or where they want to better their lives, but all I can think about is if I were listening to this when I were married, what would I need to hear to know, like, we got to work on this? What are some things you can tell people, like reverse what you know about divorce? What should people be doing in their marriage before it falls apart?
I mean, you have to start at day one. That's the reality. You need to work at it because so people fall into these patterns and they're not putting the work that they need to. They're not paying attention to their spouse. I will say that you need to start sharing the labor, whatever that is. One person shouldn't feel like they're carrying the burden. And so you need to be able to communicate, help out, listen, and grow with your partner. If you can't do those things, you're probably calling me.
Yeah. And like, I am almost mad at the system of like education because none of us learned communication
right
at the level that we need to.
Whether with your spouse, your friends, your parents,
your kids, anything. The way I talk is just the way that I think people will understand what I mean by it. And my tone, I think, is understood that it's a little sarcasm and it's just my style. But there's so much heart under there. And I think a lot of couples are speaking different languages.
They are.
Because they've got complete different communication methods.
And then they begin resenting each other as time goes by. And that resentment's very hard to undo. Yeah.
Resentment, trust, and misunderstanding were kind of like the three things that stand out to me for anybody that I know that's been through separation, divorce.
Right.
Is not feeling seen and heard.
Correct. I mean, that's probably in every single divorce. You'll hear one of the spouses say that.
Yes. And misunderstood. And it's really sad because I think so many people just wanted the happily ever after.
Right. Of course. Nobody enters this thinking that they're going to have to call me or that they're going to be in this position. It's the last place you wanted to be. But it's where you find yourself. And then the question becomes, once you find yourself here, how do you get to the next step.
Yeah.
Because it is a challenging process to get through. You will get through it. As you know, you will get through it.
Yes.
And good can come from it. It doesn't have to be in the moment. It may feel very hard and very negative. And you may feel that there's a lot of shame that comes along with that, right? Nobody wants to say, I'm getting divorced. Right. You feel like you failed at something.
Right.
But it's also a period of time to rebuild. And there's some beauty in that too. You can't see it when you're in it, but you will get there.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
I'm talking, I'll get DMs from people who are like, I am just a few months out from a separation, and I look at your page and it's so inspiring to me to know that I will come out of this. And I'm thinking, if they only knew where I was 5 years ago, I was looking for this source of, I never paid attention to divorce or separation or raising kids as a single parent. And so when that was happening for me, all I wanted to see was, did somebody make it out the other side? Are they okay? Did they believe in love again? Were their kids all right?
Right.
So that's what we're all looking for. And you and I think, are a perfect example of yes, one foot in the front of the other, one day at a time.
Yeah, and it'll be fine. And you will rebuild. And yes, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, but isn't that anything in life?
Anything. Yes. So what about I'll say men or women that just don't feel like they have the financial resources to be represented?
Yeah, that's a struggle because it can be a very expensive process, right? And so there are ways you can try to avoid that, but it really is going to take two people. So you can go the mediation route, right? You don't need to be litigating this in the court system. Mediation's a wonderful tool. It's time efficient, cost effective. The problem is that it's going to take two people that are willing to make concessions to get it done. Mm-hmm. And if you have a spouse that is unwilling to do that, mm-hmm. you're in trouble because now
we were this close in mediation, this close.
And then look at how long it took after that.
5 years.
Right.
And we were in mediation and we were like, okay, we're on the same page. And then the wind blew and it took us 4 more years. And all I used to say, I think I said it to you, I said it to my first attorney, I said, how do people do this that don't have these resources? How are women who have been stay-at-home moms and raised their kids, how did they leave a bad situation? And I'm not an advocate for divorce, but I'm saying there are some situations that are bad.
There are a lot of people that stay in marriages that shouldn't be staying in marriages because they are concerned they cannot financially survive after divorce, or they're afraid they can't afford the process. And the process can be expensive, but there are ways to handle it, to keep it low conflict if you're able to. But yeah, it's a challenging situation to be in.
So if somebody feels like they are in an abusive relationship, who do they go to? Because it's not you, right?
It should be.
Okay.
One of many people they should be going to.
Okay.
Right? So I think the question is it a safety
I'm glad we're
issue?
talking about this because my understanding is that people would think there's no way I could even call her office. I can't afford this.
But you should be calling somebody to get some advice.
Okay.
First. So you have an understanding of what lies ahead. I always say that information is power. So the more you know, the better decisions you're going to make for yourself. You can plan your way out of a bad situation. So you should be consulting with somebody to see what steps would I need to take? What does it look like? Where do I go first? I want to say if you're in an abusive relationship and there is a safety issue, you need to be addressing that first, whether that's by restraining order or some other method, but you should not be staying in a situation that is not safe if it's physically abusive for you, especially if there's children in the house as well. So you need to find a way out of that. You should have a therapist, somebody that you're talking to about this. And if it's domestic violence, you should have a domestic violence advocate. And then you do want to talk about how do you get out if you need to get divorced. And you need to have a therapist in place. That is always somebody that can guide you in the right direction. But you need to keep yourself safe and your children safe.
Right. And all I can think about is that mom who, because that's what my DMs tell me. I have stuff like people share their deepest, darkest sadness and joys with me. and I didn't, I'm not an expert.
Right.
So all I can think of is, how do I honor these people by giving them some information?
And there are legal services that people can qualify for that if you are in a domestic abuse situation, there are sometimes services that can help you through the divorce process as well. And but I just want to say domestic abuse, if you're in that situation, that applies all across the board, whether you're wealthy or you're not.
Right.
It's in a lot of households. And unfortunately, people hide that.
Yeah.
You're afraid to speak up.
It's scary. It's embarrassing. And you want to hopefully see the other person changing.
Right. And you can't believe that you're finding yourself there. Yeah. How did I, this intelligent person, find myself in this situation? And you can't even accept it. And then how do you get out of it?
Right. Right. It's very scary because I see it a lot in my comments and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And those cases are challenging for divorces too. I mean, those are definitely high conflict cases. And when there's children involved, we have to protect them as well. Yes.
So does the family court system favor women?
That is a question I get a lot. I'm going to say no. I see that people generally seem to believe that if you are the mom, you're going to have custody of your children. I'm going to tell you that's not the case. I have a lot of fathers that have shared parenting or have custody of their kids. It feels to a lot of people, I think, that the court does favor women because generally speaking, the moms do have at least shared, if not primary custody of their kids. But the reason for that is not because they're women. It is because of the role that they have played in their child's life up until the point of the divorce. And as we started this conversation, women tend to take on, historically, more of this nurturing role. They're the ones making the doctor's appointments and bringing the kids there. They're the ones scheduling the play dates. Sometimes they're the stay-at-home parents. Sometimes it's the other parent. But we are typically serving more of a nurturing role for these children. And when the court has to make a decision, where are these kids going? What is this parenting plan going to look like? How are we going to handle this? The court is not looking what's best for mom, what's best for dad, or if you're a same-sex couple, what's best for that parent. They're saying what is best for this kid? And they're going to look at historically what has been happening in this marriage, in this family, and how do we honor the child and make sure this child is in the best position possible. So I think generally people are saying, well, moms get favored. Judges will tell you, don't walk into their courtroom and assume because you are a mom that you're going to walk out of there with custody of your child.
Do you remember how scared I was that, I was just going to, I hate to make it about a split. And a lot of people ask me what my schedule is with my kid's dad.
Right.
And I don't need to go there. But I remember how scared I was, where I was like, how does somebody just get 50-50?
Right.
When reality was like, I left my career. I took a seat back so that I could work part-time to raise them while I was also consulting and doing all the stuff, which I was happy to do. And then he was traveling more. And I was so emotional about how can this just be a formula like that?
Right.
And I refused to just hand that over. It was like my life was flashing before my eyes thinking of giving up 50% of my kid's life.
Right.
But knowing what I know now, you're not giving up 50% of your kid's life. You're resetting and right? So let's talk about that.
That's exactly what it is. You are resetting. Children are going to benefit from having two involved parents in their lives. Studies show this. As long as it's a healthy relationship, kids are going to benefit from that. But how do we get to a point? What does this parenting plan look like? That's scary for a lot of people to think about. The court has to look at many different things, or not even just the court. Families have to look at many different things when setting that. What does a parent's schedule look like? Mm-hmm. Where are the parents going to live? Are you in close proximity to one another? Can this child travel from both residence to school in the morning? Yeah. What does that look like? Does this child have special needs? Does one parent's job require them to travel? There are a host of things we need to look at to decide what is going to serve this child best. And P.S., a child is not a piece of property. We do not just say, you get half, I get half. That's not how this works. We want to have this thriving, healthy, happy child. The question is, how do we accomplish that? And it is having both parents involved as long as it's safe and it's healthy. But how do we accomplish that? Some parents may say, listen, I have to go to work at 5 a.m. every morning. I can't have my kids during the school week overnight because I can't get them to school in the morning. Or you may have a child that just doesn't acclimate well to going in between two homes during a school week.
Right.
So let's get creative. We have summer breaks. We have holidays, school breaks. Maybe they're spending more of those breaks with the other parent that can find ways to make that work with the child's schedule and their schedule. And during the week, they're having more stability if that's what the child needs. If parents are living close proximity and this child can easily flow between houses, well, let's look at how can we make this work for the child. It's really, at the end of the day, not what works for mom, dad, or whatever parent it is. It's what works for this child.
And I remember feeling like it's tit for tat. It's keeping score. And that's how I think the court system, or it's just the perception of the court system that made me feel that way, right? Oh, what's the formula? I remember looking up the formula on a website.
Right.
As to, well, what if this calendar works out this way? What's that? What is that? What's the split? So is your advice where it's a formality? It's something in the court system that just sign, seal, delivered, but then it's up to two parents to just make it work after that and adjust and ebb and flow? Like, what's the best? Who's doing it best? Who is doing the best co-parenting ever?
Well, the parents that can get along amicably.
The ones that got the mediator.
Yes, they're doing the best. Yes. But I caution everybody, because when you're in court, you are having a judge who is a stranger, who does not know you.
This was me.
Yeah.
Shaking like a fucking leaf.
Yeah, because
crying, looking at my ex. I couldn't even look at him. And my lawyer before you would be like, stop. She was so mad at me because I would be like, ugh. Like I couldn't get it together because it just was so not where I was meant to be, in a room full of people where you are exposed in front of other strangers who are sitting waiting for their time to get up. The lighting is horrible. You look gray. You're freaking exposed.
It's horrifying.
It's horrible.
Because courtrooms are public.
You don't want to go to court, do the mediator.
Yeah, and you have a judge who doesn't know Nicki, who doesn't know her kids. And guess what this judge is going to do? They're going to make a decision that's going to impact your life and your children's lives.
Flipping through paper, reading, text messages that are so,
I know.
God awful. It's literally like, hey, take off all my clothes and make me run buck wild through friggin' downtown Providence.
Yeah.
It felt that vulnerable. It broke me down so deeply that I'm like finally feeling the pieces of myself again.
Right. That experience is a tough one for a lot of people. And that's why you try to avoid it if possible. And it is not always possible because you have people that are not flexible, right? They're not willing to compromise. It's their way or the highway. How do you get through a divorce when somebody's like that?
And he will think you're like that and you will think he's like that.
Right.
So now you're in it.
You're in it. And now you have a stranger making a decision that's going to impact your children and you for a very long time.
For a very long time. Yeah. You and I got so creative with things. And I think that that's what I would challenge people who are about to go through this or don't know what to do just to settle.
Yes.
Like talk about creative elements. Like what have you seen work for people?
Well, you always have to think outside the box. That's the truth. There are creative solutions to almost every problem. And I'm not going to say everyone because there's some that really can't be solved. You have to think outside of the box. And if you can do that collectively, most of the time you're both going to feel like your needs are being met and you're going to be able to find common ground. Yeah. But if you're sticking to these cookie cutter solutions, somebody's going to feel wronged every single time.
Yeah.
So you have to get creative. And you were able to get creative.
Well, I said, Renee, I need my life back.
Right.
I want my life back. I'm willing to give up this in order to have this.
You have to prioritize.
And we did it.
And you did. And we found creative solutions to get it done that you felt comfortable with and he felt comfortable with.
I felt like we were able to go in there in a classy manner. Okay. In a classy manner where I felt like myself. I didn't feel like we were bulldozing or trying to be like, meh,
right,
like brats. you see some lawyers in there, they're brats. How do you go up against an asshole?
How
do you go up against an asshole attorney?
You do. It's our jobs. But I will say it's a small legal community, so we have to do our best to not act like that. And it's unfortunate because if your client, that's what they see, that's what they expect. Judges see who you are.
Yeah.
They know who we are. We go in there acting like that. It's not helping us and it's not helping our client. That doesn't mean we don't zealously advocate, because that's what you have to do every time you walk in the courtroom and make sure you're getting the best result for your client. But yeah, are there difficult people out there? Absolutely.
I was in the courtroom going, wowzers. And also just hot mess attorneys, like coming in like just a mess.
Yeah, that's why, going back to what I said before, you have to be comfortable with who you select as your attorney. I always say to people, even after they've spoken with me and they're like, I think I'm comfortable, I want to go forward. I say, you should probably talk to somebody else anyways. Make sure you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Because you may find out I'm not the match for you.
Yeah. You know, some of the things I would go back and ask if I wasn't recommended to you, right? If I didn't know already that you were the right person, I would go back and say, how organized is this person? Because I'm not organized. How organized are they with all the emails I've sent and the tracing of them and all the numbers I've sent in the past? And like, because I'm not a numbers person, I'm not a finance person. I could have easily had that to my detriment if I didn't hire somebody who was making up for that for me, right? So I think that's worked with what worked with us. You knew, this ain't my thing. I'm a hot mess in this, but here's what I care about.
Yeah. If I was not able to keep it organized, we would have been in a much different position. But as an attorney, I think that's our job, is to make sure we're keeping our clients on task.
Yep.
We're handling their case in a way that we are organized so we can get to the next step in the case. And you were pretty honest about where you were at.
You were the CEO of my divorce, though. Like, I gave you everything. You were the therapist. You were like that. Yeah, all of it.
But you came in, you were a hot mess express in the best way, though.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay, because you owned it and you were like, Renee, I'm not good at this. So here's what it is. And I knew that. And I was like, okay, I got it from here. That's my job. That's what you're hired me for.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure that the person that you are retaining to do this for you is accomplishing the tasks you need them to.
Love it. Now I'm gonna switch the vibe a little bit. Being a mom, you're a mom of two, and you're a lawyer.
Yes.
What is the balancing act? I don't even like the word balancing. Talk about the state of badass, lean in women. Because I see the picture of an attorney, a female attorney who's a mom. That's like a lean in job. And then you're raising kids.
Right.
What's that like?
Every day my pants is on fire. From the morning I wake up until I go to bed. No, it's just like any other working parent. You know, you are doing your best, never feeling like you're the best at anything, but hoping that at the end of the day, you're doing a good job.
What's your mom's superpower? Because I think we're all really good at some things in motherhood and not all things. And every episode, I want to leave people saying, well, what is my superpower? Because we compare ourselves.
That's an excellent question.
Yeah. You should know the answer.
I
want you to know the answer when you leave here and be like.
I think I'm very fortunate in the job I have, even though I am an attorney and it is demanding, because of the position I have. I work for myself. That means some days I'm there for my kids so much more than other moms can maybe be, or parents in general. So that may mean at 9:00 at night, I'm back doing work, but I've left at 3. I'm picking them up. So I have a lot of flexibility. I say that, and then days that I have a trial or I'm in court, I have no flexibility. Right. But I do have enough where I feel like I am available to my kids. And to me, that's just so important. Yes. No matter how exhausted I am.
Showing up. They know you're there. They know mom is.
Right. I'm not perfect at everything. Yep. I'm well aware.
Yep.
I'm falling short probably in half the things I'm doing at home. But they see me there. They know I'm present. They know if they need something, I will make sure it happens.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Yeah. I love that. I think it's so important. We all think that way. And then what is your like go-to meal? How are you with meals? How are you with...
If I never have to cook again, I'm okay with that.
And I'm asking everyone this, and it's all the same. We're all struggling. Yeah. So it's so funny how social media, we all think we're supposed to be doing all this stuff so well.
I try. I will say this, like I definitely try every night to have a nice meal prepared, but it's a joke half the time. Let's be real.
Yes.
So I would be okay if in my next life, I am going to have a chef that cooks all my meals. That's what I want.
Would that, all right. Next tier up, right? Mm-hmm. You've made it. Is that your thing?
Absolutely.
I love that.
Not even a question.
Will they cook? Will it be healthy?
It will be healthy.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't always have to be.
Right.
But I would love that. The thought of a meal every day is on my mind.
Yeah.
I have one kid that sends me a text from school that says, "What's for dinner tonight?"
So that means you're a good cook, though. My kids don't ask me what's for dinner. They're like...
No, she's just thinking about her next meal. And I'm like, I have not even... It's not even lunchtime.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about my next meal or snack. I like girl dinner. I'm into that.
Yeah.
I'm into like, what can I pick at?
Yeah, she wants a meal.
Yeah.
And the mental workload of putting together a meal when you're in the middle of a work day, I can't.
Yeah. I get it.
I would like a chef.
I would love a chef too. You heard that. Maybe you heard it here first.
Put it out to the universe.
We are going to put it out there to the universe. And last question before we close up. What is like the beauty product that you can't live without?
Oh, I don't know.
Is there like, right?
I do have like this highlighter thing I put on my nose.
You look great today.
Thank you.
You look great. You look like tanned and glowing.
I do use the self tanner.
Okay. So is it a good one?
No. I really don't think it is, but I love it. Like
Which one is it?
It's the wet. It's Jergens. It's when you get out of the shower. It's the wet body one. It's my lotion. I use it every day.
You look great.
Thank you.
All right? So what's the highlighter though? I want 2 products.
I'll have to show you. I forget what it's called. I'll show. It's in my bag.
It's in your bag.
Yeah.
All right.
I got you.
Then we'll get a little side piece. All right.
What about you? What's your beauty?
Oh gosh. No, I wasn't planning on answering that. I would say if I only get to use one a day, it's a mascara.
Right. It does everything for the eye. I know it makes you look awake.
That's it. If I don't have my mascara,
you feel naked.
Might as well not put anything on. If I have my mascara only, still in the game.
You're very naturally beautiful.
Thank you.
You don't need much.
Thank you.
You don't need anything.
I would say today, what I used before this it's Doll something mascara. Great mascara. I don't even know who they are, but they sent it to me. It's my favorite. And then Say lip gloss.
Looks great.
All right. That's it. Where can we find you? What if someone needs you?
I am not on social media if that's
No,
what
but
you're
I'm
asking.
saying if the people need your legal services.
They can find me.
The Hawk.
You could just Google me, Renee Hawk. It's O'Rourke and Hawk. I'm out of Charlestown,
Massachusetts.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Amazing. All right. You heard it here first. Holla at your girl. Stay for more. Stay married if you can. And if you can't, call the Hawk. That's the tagline. That's your new tagline for you. Just put it on the website. Dab. Love you guys.